Hello, friends, and welcome back to RV Miles. I'm Jason, and it is time once again to answer your comments and questions from the last month or so. It's actually been a little over a month. I got behind on this for some reason. I missed it, and it's been about 6 weeks since the last time I did one of these videos. But I love doing these videos where I get to sort of respond to some of the comments that are out there, sometimes comments that are repeated over and over. So there's interest in the answer to them and some crazy stuff as well. So let's jump right in. This is from the latest news video talking about Army Corps of Engineers campgrounds in the South closing due to the extended federal shutdown. We received a notice our reservation in Mississippi for April 2026 was canceled due to the shutdown. Crazy. That is wild. I can't believe that they're canceling that far out. I knew they were going to cancel reservations automatically. I'm shocked that they're canceling them that far out. Obviously, the shutdown, well, theoretically, will not go anywhere near that long, but it seems crazy to me that they wouldn't do this on like a rolling basis, a month at a time or something like that, instead of having people have to then go back and re-reserve all of their reservations for next year. Wow. From the same video talking about RV manufacturing numbers, the number of vehicles shipped out to dealers from the manufacturers, I wish you would give your opinion on why Class A sales are doing poorly. We are fifth wheel owners, but curious. Great video as always. Thanks so much for your comment. Yeah, so Class A motorhomes, so if you're not familiar, Class A motorhomes are sort of the big boxy bus-shaped ones. And for the last several years, there's been a great reduction in the percentage of RVs that are manufactured that are Class A motorhomes. And it's been particularly rough during this downturn in the RV industry that spanned the better part of the last 2 years. There's a few different reasons. And the first one that is sort of a longer term reason is the fact that so many people own pickup trucks now. Pickup trucks have really exploded in sales over the last decade or so. More and more Americans own pickup trucks, therefore, more and more Americans are going to be interested in a trailer over perhaps a motorhome. So, motorhome sales in general have been reducing in relation to the number of trailers that have been sold and manufactured. Now, Class A motorhomes are generally, as a category, not always the case, but overall, as a category, the most expensive RVs on the market. And that's the biggest reason you've seen them hit the most. When you're looking at something that costs 300,000, 400,000, 5, 6, a million, two, then you get into, obviously real conversations about this being more expensive than a house, and interest rates are a huge impacting factor when it comes to purchasing something that expensive. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, when you increase the interest rate by a point. So interest rates become a big factor, inflation becomes a big factor, and just economic strife in general becomes a big factor. So we've seen not only a reduction in the number of RVs being sold over the last couple of years, but a reduction in the value of the individual units being sold. So fewer and fewer of the more expensive units have been sold. And that's really where it comes down to with Class A RVs. This talking about specifically the rise in RVs shipped in September as opposed to the previous September. The rise, in my opinion, is shows like Hershey and then dealer events where dealers purchase 2026 units. I would like to see new RVs registered by owner numbers, not numbers from manufacturers' shipping numbers. This to me is not a rebound until you see matching vehicles registered by owners. The RV industry blowing smoke up. Dot dot dot. So there's a reason people often ask me this. Why do I share September versus the previous September instead of September versus August and July and June? This is exactly why. So last September as well, there were RV shows, and September is the time when dealers are starting to stock 2026 model year units or the next year model. So that's the reason why we're looking at September compared to the previous September. So when I say Shipments in September have gone up 4 to 5%. I can't remember what the exact number was. I think it was something like 4.5% over the previous September. That is an increase over the same time period last year when the same stuff was going on, and that's why that comparison makes sense. Sales numbers are, of course, more concrete and more important, and I do share those when we get them, but they do lag shipment numbers. But the shipment numbers are accurate. Shipment numbers are the number of RVs that are manufactured by the manufacturers. So the RV Industry Association surveys all the manufacturers about how many they put out and send out to dealers' lots. There's no reason for them to not be accurate. People think that the industry is blowing smoke with those numbers. What tells you that? They're sharing numbers that are abysmal. The numbers yeah, it's up 4.5% from last year, but previous months were not, and they shared that. The numbers are way, way down from previous years. So I don't really have a reason to believe that the industry is making these numbers up. But what I do think is happening when we see a little bit of a tiny rebound there is that we've reached really the bottom of the market. It's sort of stabilized at this level. Perhaps we'll have a little bit of an increase next year if the economy uh, continues where it's at, if interest rates continue to slowly drop, though we don't know if that'll happen. But we'll either be staying the same or increasing slightly with RV sales, as long as no drastic earth shattering events happen. I got a mattress for my camper from RV Mattress. It was fantastic, better than the mattress in my house. Highly recommended. Thanks so much for commenting that. We try to work with advertisers who sell products that people like, and we tried not to work with advertisers who sell products that people don't like. So it's a great segue to the sponsor of today's episode. More in a moment, but first, this episode is sponsored by RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. Get a real mattress for your RV instead of the cheap piece of foam that it came with at RVmattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. They sell real mattresses in all the odd sizes RVs require, like short kings, Olympic queens, odd bunk sizes, different thicknesses, and more. Their mattresses are toxin free, made in their factory in Arizona, and shipped to you vacuum sealed wherever you are. You just unwrap them and let them expand. They have a 120-night sleep trial, free shipping, and a limited lifetime warranty. But the best part is the RV Miles community gets 30% off, the best deal they ever offer, any day of the year with code RV Miles at rvmattress.com/RV Miles. That's rvmattress.com/RV Miles with code RV Miles at checkout for 30% off. Okay, lots of comments on this video I did about sanitizing your water tanks. Water heaters with aluminum tanks, i.e., Dometic with an anode rod, should be placed in bypass mode before flushing with bleach. I got a lot of comments about not running the bleach mixture for a sanitizing solution through your water heater. And look, technically, yeah, that's probably what's in the directions for that water heater. Uh, and yes, as some of you mentioned, bleach will corrode uh, aluminum. Bleach will also corrode copper and stainless steel and plastic and everything. Bleach will corrode anything if you give it time. And at the amount of bleach we're talking about, a quarter cup per 15 gallons of, of water capacity in your system, and the amount of time that we're talking about, 4 to no more than 24 hours, but I prefer to do nowhere near 24 hours. With the amount of time we're talking about, I don't think you have any worries of the bleach actually corroding your water heater at that tiny, tiny amount of bleach that's being put in. And that's part of the reason why you're putting such a small amount in. It is safer uh, for most of the components in your system. However, if you don't feel comfortable doing that, don't run it through your water heater, but you do need to flush and clean out your water heater because a lot of people get some nasty gunk in there, and uh, the heat of the water heater is not enough. Just changing my overflow hose off my tank was clogged with algae and slime. I do add chlorine each time I fill my fresh tank, not enough to notice at the faucet, but enough to sanitize the fill tube. So several of you mentioned adding a tiny, even a smaller amount of bleach to your drinking water all the time, and that you don't sanitize your system because you do that. That is a method. Really, what you're doing there is disinfecting the water itself, the drinking water, and not the surfaces in the system. So I don't really think that that's as good as of a method. I do think you need to actually do the full sanitization process. And then a couple recommendations for liquids you should use other than bleach or a sanitizing product like the one I used in the video. You can also use hydrogen peroxide if you don't like the bleach taste. You would need gallons upon gallons of hydrogen peroxide. Not going to cut it. You need to clean your system out with white vinegar. That's what kills bacteria and mold spores. Bleach is not the option to go with. In several comments like that, talking about how bleach does not kill mold. Again, you would need gallons upon gallons of vinegar to properly sanitize your system. You're not going to get away with putting in a gallon or a couple cups. That's not enough to sanitize a full water system. And that's why you use bleach or a product that is meant for sanitizing your water system. Bleach does kill mold. It does not kill mold spores on porous surfaces. And that's why you've heard that. You can't use bleach to kill mold on drywall and on wood, but it does kill mold on non-porous surfaces like your water lines. So it will work to kill mold within your system. And then this is a great comment, something I didn't know about and we can all learn from. I'd like to mention that for those using the bleach option, it's important to use fresh bleach. If stored properly below 70 degrees in the original container, it will last a year before it starts to break down and will eventually break down to plain salt water. That's 1 year from manufacturer, not from the date of purchase. Thanks for letting us know about that. A bleach does expire and you need to use fresh bleach. So thank you for letting us know about that. Okay, another video with a ton of comments. The one I did on changing roadways and the different types of intersections like roundabouts. Some of you yelled at me for using the term roundabout and saying it's traffic circle or like two other things that I'm supposed to call it. Hey, it has multiple names and that's okay. Except for the one person who was like, a traffic circle doesn't have lights and a roundabout has lights on it. Never heard that before. Anyway, thanks for all your great comments on that video. A lot of you love the diverging diamond interchanges. A lot of you hate the diverging diamond interchanges. A lot of you love roundabouts. A lot of you hate roundabouts. It was really interesting to read through some of the comments on that video. So I grabbed a couple, and this is one that really caught my eye. I grew up in Nashua, New Hampshire, and I remember on some roads, the lights would change in the late evening to blinking yellows on the main road and blinking reds for the cross traffic. I wish that was more common. Yeah, I ran into that for the first time maybe 20 years ago in, I think, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I don't know if that's still common up there, or if Wisconsin as a state does it a lot, but it is a really great method. And I wish more places would do it. So, what they're talking about, if you're not clear, is like if you've got a main road that's got, several ancillary roads that cross it, but there's the main road is the one that receives the most traffic when it's not heavy traffic time, so throughout the night, you change all of those lights to a flashing yellow. So you just never have to stop when you're running the main traffic routes. And then if you're running the cross routes, you're just stopping as if it's a stop sign because it's a flashing red. It works really well, and I wish more places did it. Talking about the fact that these sorts of intersections are designed to make driving safer. Yeah, and if we all drove just 40 miles per hour, traffic deaths would go down. Heck, how about 30 miles per hour? Any objections to this very reasonable but inconvenient plan that will most certainly save lives? You're being facetious here, and you're making a joke about how maybe we go too far trying to save lives. First of all, that's wild to me. The traffic deaths are just a huge killer of Americans. It's wild how many traffic deaths there are. And your comment brought up a separate point to me, a similar point to me. We've done so much work over the past, 50 years, whatever it's been, to make vehicles safer. Vehicles are far, far safer than they were 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. And you would be less likely to get killed in one if it weren't for the fact that we keep raising speed limits. So you're making a joke about lowering speed limits till it's safer and safer. And I get it. But we're actually doing the opposite of that. Speed limits keep going up and up and up. Cars are safer, so we drive faster. I don't know how I feel about that. I feel like a lot of traffic deaths are preventable, and people like to think of themselves as very individualistic, and the fact that they drive so well means that they're never going to die in a car accident. But there are other people on the road, and they're much more likely to be the cause of the accident than you. So, uh, yeah, just some food for thought there. And then the funny one for this month. You can blame the Chinese roads and rails for roundabouts and its larger cousin, the double diamond. You mean the diverting diamond? The idea here is not safety, but uniformity. The idea is that so driving here in the US is the same as anywhere else in the world. This is part of China's social score program. If this is hard for you to believe, please check it out. It's very hard for me to believe since roundabouts were invented in Europe and since the diverging diamond first appeared in Missouri. This is like the comment I get all the time that the Chinese own our national parks. Look it up, check it out. The Chinese own our national parks. What are you talking about? I don't get it. And yeah, I've looked it up. I know where your comments are coming from, but wild, wild tinfoil hat stuff there. Thanks for commenting, though. It helps it feed the algorithm. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Please comment on more videos. I like responding to them. I like reading what you have to say, even if I don't get around to responding to it. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.